Everything was good, or so I thought. So let me start by saying this clearly. At that time in my life, everything looked good. I smiled easily. I laughed often. I told myself, and anyone who asked, that I was finally happy. If you had asked me back then how I was doing, I would have answered without hesitation. Everything's good. And I meant it. Or at least, I thought I did. I was in a season where love felt easy, comfortable, safe. For the first time in a long time, I felt chosen. I had a good man, someone who showed up, someone consistent, someone who didn't make love feel like a battle. We laughed together. We talked about life. We shared moments that felt real, not rushed. It felt peaceful. And peace, when you've lived through chaos, feels like a miracle. I remember thinking, maybe this is it. Maybe this is what I prayed for. I wasn't chasing anymore. I wasn't begging for attention. I wasn't questioning my worth every night before going to sleep. I felt secure, loved, seen. But here's the thing no one tells you. Sometimes, when life finally gets quiet, that's when the noise from your past gets louder. I didn't plan for anything to go wrong. I didn't wake up one day and decide to mess up my own happiness. I truly believed I had moved on. I believed the past was behind me. But healing doesn't work on a schedule, and unresolved feelings don't disappear just because you want them to. They wait. Quietly. Patiently. That day started like any other normal day. I was minding my own business, running errands completely in my own world. No drama, no stress, just another moment in a life that finally felt balanced. I stopped at a gas station. Nothing special. Nothing dramatic. Just gas. Just routine. And then life decided to test me. Because standing right there, out of nowhere, was my past. My ex. The one I told myself I was over. The one I said no longer mattered. The one I swore had no power over me anymore. And there they were, pumping gas like they'd never left my life. Like time hadn't passed. Like emotions didn't exist. My heart didn't race at first. It sank. That heavy feeling in your chest, the one that doesn't scream but whispers, "Be careful." I tried to play it cool. Tried to act unbothered. But inside, something shifted. Not because I wanted it to, but because it wasn't finished. You see, we like to convince ourselves that closure comes automatically with time. That if you stop talking to someone, stop seeing them, stop saying their name, then the chapter is closed. But that's not always true. Sometimes the book is still open. You just shoved it under the bed and pretended it wasn't there. I drove away from that gas station telling myself it meant nothing. I told myself, it's just coincidence. It's just the past trying to get my attention. I'm stronger now. And maybe I was. But strength doesn't mean temptation disappears. It just means you notice it faster. Back then, I was deeply into this new relationship. I felt protected. I felt adored. I felt like I didn't need anything else. He loved me loudly, spoke about me proudly, made me feel safe in ways I hadn't felt in a long time. He wasn't perfect, but he was present, and that mattered. There's a certain kind of love that feels like rest. Not fireworks, not chaos, not obsession, just peace. And when you've lived through emotional storms, peace feels intoxicating. That's what I had. Or so I thought. But here's the truth I didn't want to face. Even in peace, there were parts of me that hadn't healed. Parts that still remembered what was. Parts that still questioned what if. Parts that never got answers. And when my ex reappeared, those parts woke up. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough to make me curious. At first, it felt harmless. A thought. A memory. A feeling I pushed away. I didn't act on it. I didn't cross any lines. At least not yet. But curiosity is dangerous when it mixes with unresolved emotions. Because curiosity doesn't ask permission. It just asks, what if? I kept telling myself, I'm happy. I don't need anything else. I've moved on. And I truly believed that. But belief isn't the same as truth. What I didn't realize was that I was standing at a crossroads. On one side was the life I was building, stable, loving, secure. On the other side was the life I survived, familiar, emotional, unfinished. And instead of choosing immediately, I hesitated. I didn't tell anyone about the gas station encounter. Not my partner. Not my friends. Not even myself, at least not honestly. I minimized it, shrugged it off, pretended it didn't matter. But silence is how secrets are born. This was the stage where everything still looked good. I still smiled, still laughed, still said, everything's good. But underneath, that smile was a question I didn't want to answer. Was I truly done with my past, or was I just distracted from it? Because love doesn't only test you when things are bad. It tests you when things are good. When you're comfortable. When you feel safe enough to make mistakes. I didn't know then that this moment, this random gas station, this accidental encounter, was the beginning of everything falling apart. I thought it was nothing. Just a moment. Just coincidence. But life rarely interrupts you without purpose. And that's where this story really begins. Not with betrayal. Not with lies. Not with heartbreak. But with comfort, happiness, and the dangerous belief that everything was good. When the past knocked back. After that day at the gas station, I kept telling myself it meant nothing. I went back to my routine. Back to smiling. Back to being present. Back to pretending nothing had changed. But something had changed. Because once the past reminds you it still exists, it doesn't disappear again so easily. At first, there was silence. No messages. No calls. No follow-ups. And honestly, that silence felt like relief. I told myself, see, that was just a moment. I didn't imagine anything. But then the message came. Short. Simple. Dangerous. Hey, I saw you the other day. Hope you're doing well. That was it. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing disrespectful. Just enough to open a door I thought was locked. I stared at my phone for a long time. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew exactly what not to say. The mature thing would have been to ignore it. The loyal thing would have been to block it. The healed thing would have been to let it go. But healing doesn't always show up when you need it most. Sometimes curiosity speaks louder than wisdom. I told myself I was just being polite. I told myself I was being grown. I told myself responding didn't mean anything. So I replied, hey, I'm good, hope you are too. And just like that, the door opened. At first, it was harmless conversation. How's life? How's work? Time really flies, huh? Nothing emotional. Nothing flirty. At least, not on the surface. But emotions don't always announce themselves loudly. Sometimes they sneak in disguised as nostalgia. We laughed about old memories. Moments that felt distant, but familiar. And familiarity is dangerous. Because your heart remembers things, your mind tries to forget. Meanwhile, my relationship was still good. He was still loving, still consistent, still choosing me every day. And that made the guilt worse. Because I wasn't unhappy. I wasn't neglected. I wasn't lonely. So why did that message matter? That's the part people don't like to admit. Sometimes temptation doesn't come when you're lacking. It comes when you're comfortable. When you feel safe enough to entertain something you shouldn't. The conversations slowly got longer, more frequent, more personal. We started talking about feelings, past feelings, things that were never resolved, things that were never said out loud. And instead of shutting it down, I listened. That's where I messed up. Not when I replied, not when I talked, but when I allowed myself to feel. I told myself I was just getting closure. That word, closure, can be dangerous because sometimes people use it as an excuse to reopen wounds. I didn't tell my partner, not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I didn't want to face what it meant. If I told him, I'd have to admit something wasn't as settled as I claimed. And I wasn't ready to face that truth. Friends started noticing a shift in me. "You've been quiet lately. You okay? You seem distracted." I brushed it off. "I'm fine. Just tired. Work stress." Lies don't always sound like lies. Sometimes they sound reasonable. Then came the invitation. Dinner. Just dinner. Nothing serious. That's what I told myself. And honestly, that's what I believed. I knew it was wrong. I knew I was crossing a line. But I also knew something else. A part of me wanted to know. Not because I wanted to leave my relationship, but because I wanted to feel understood by my past. I went to dinner, and the moment I sat across from my ex, I knew I'd messed up. Not because it felt bad, but because it felt familiar. Too familiar. We talked for hours. About life. About mistakes. About growth. About what could have been. And that's when it became dangerous. Because what could have been is a fantasy that ignores reality. I didn't sleep with him that night. Not yet. But emotionally, I had already stepped outside my relationship. And emotional cheating doesn't leave visible marks, but it leaves damage all the same. When I got home, my partner was waiting, happy to see me, excited, unaware. And that broke me, because I realized something painful. I was hurting someone who had done nothing wrong. That night, guilt sat heavy on my chest. I couldn't sleep, couldn't relax, couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing on thin ice. But instead of stopping, I kept going. Because once you cross one line, the next one feels easier. The texts continued. The calls became frequent. And slowly, I found myself living two emotional lives. One with security, one with temptation. I told myself I was confused. I told myself I needed time. But time doesn't fix dishonesty. It only deepens it. I started justifying my actions. Maybe I never really healed. Maybe I rushed into this relationship. Maybe I owe it to myself to understand my feelings. And that's how people convince themselves wrongdoing is self-discovery. The truth was simple, but hard to face. I wanted both. The safety of my present and the familiarity of my past. And you can't have both without someone getting hurt. I still smiled, still laughed, still said, everything's good. But inside, I was splitting myself in two. I didn't realize then that the clock had started ticking. That secrets always surface. That phones always get checked. That the truth always finds its way out. Because the more you hide, the louder the truth becomes. And soon, everything that was quiet was about to explode. Living two lives. By this point, I wasn't just confused. I was divided. One version of me was still showing up every day, smiling, laughing, being affectionate, pretending everything was normal. The other version of me was hiding. Hiding messages. Hiding feelings. Hiding truths I didn't want to face. And the worst part, I convinced myself I was handling it. I told myself I wasn't cheating. I hadn't crossed that line yet. No hotel rooms. No nights spent together. So in my mind, I was still good. But what I didn't understand then was this. You don't have to touch someone to betray trust. You just have to choose them emotionally over the person who loves you. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. Not because I was excited, but because I was scared. Scared of getting caught. Scared of what it meant. Scared of admitting I was wrong. And fear has a way of controlling your behavior if you let it. I started becoming protective over my phone, flipping it face down, taking calls in private, stepping away to text. Small changes, but noticeable ones. And people always notice when your energy shifts. My friends noticed. They didn't know details, but they could feel something was off. You seem distant. You okay? You're not as present lately. I brushed it off. I'm just busy. Work stress. Life stuff. Excuses. Clean ones. Believable ones. The kind people, except when they don't want to push. But then the warnings started. Real ones. The kind you don't want to hear. One of my friends sat me down and said something that stuck with me. Don't mess up something good chasing, something familiar. That hit. Because it was true. She reminded me of something important. You're not unhappy, you're just tempted. And that's a hard thing to admit. Because temptation makes you feel alive, but it doesn't mean it's good for you. She told me what I already knew. You're risking your 80% for a 20%. The safety, the consistency, the peace, for something uncertain, something unresolved, something that already ended once. I nodded like I understood, like I was listening, like I was taking it seriously. But deep down, I wasn't ready to let go of either side. The guilt started eating at me. Not all at once. Slowly. Quietly. Like a leak you pretend isn't there until the damage is done. I'd come home and see him waiting. Happy to see me. Smiling. Excited. And I'd feel terrible. Because I knew something he didn't. I knew my heart wasn't fully honest anymore. I'd sit next to him and think, how long can I keep this up? And then I'd answer myself with something dangerous. Just a little longer. Time became my excuse. I just need time. I'll figure it out. I'll be honest when I'm ready. But time doesn't heal dishonesty. It just gives it room to grow. The conversations with my ex became deeper. More emotional. More intense. We talked about the past like it was unfinished business. Like closure was waiting, just one conversation away. But closure doesn't come from reopening doors. It comes from closing them with intention. I started feeling torn. Pulled in two directions. One side offered security. The other offered familiarity and emotional intensity. And instead of choosing, I froze. That's when denial kicked in. The strongest defense mechanism. I told myself, maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe this isn't that serious. Maybe everyone goes through this. And when you normalize bad decisions, they stop feeling bad. But something else started happening. I began comparing. Comparing how they talked, how they touched, how they made me feel. And comparison is poison to commitment. I noticed my patience thinning, my attention drifting, my focus splitting. I wasn't fully present anywhere. Not with him, not with my ex, not even with myself. I started snapping over small things, getting irritated, emotionally unavailable. And he felt it. He didn't know why, but he felt the distance. One night, he asked me directly, "Is everything okay with us?" And I froze. Because that was the moment. The moment to be honest. The moment to come clean. the moment to stop everything. But I didn't. I smiled. I reassured him. I lied. Everything's fine. And the look in his eyes. He wanted to believe me. And that's what hurt the most. Because he trusted me. After that, the tension grew. The lies stacked. The weight became unbearable. I started feeling like I was living in constant fear. Fear of a message popping up. Fear of a call at the wrong time. Fear of one mistake blowing everything up. And the truth about secrets is simple. They always come with anxiety. Peace leaves the moment dishonesty enters. I wasn't sleeping well. Wasn't thinking clearly. Wasn't grounded. I was emotionally exhausted. Friends kept warning me. This isn't going to end well. You're playing with fire. You're already caught up. I laughed it off. But deep down, I knew they were right. Because I could feel it coming. That moment where everything collapses. The moment where explanations don't matter anymore. The moment where damage is already done. I didn't know how. I didn't know when. But I knew this couldn't stay hidden forever. And still, I didn't stop. That's the scary part. Not ignorance. Not confusion. But knowing better and choosing wrong anyway. Because sometimes, people don't change direction until something breaks. And in my case, everything was about to break. The moment everything fell apart. There is a moment in every lie where the truth stops waiting. This was that moment. We were sitting together like everything was normal. Laughing. Talking. Moving through the evening like two people still in love. And on the surface, it looked real. But lies don't disappear just because you're pretending harder. They wait for opportunity. My phone was right there. I wasn't paying attention. I didn't think anything would happen. And that's usually when everything happens. A notification popped up. Just a few words. But enough. Enough to stop time. Enough to change everything. He saw it. Not the full conversation. Not the history. Just enough to know. Something wasn't right. He picked up my phone. And before I could react, before I could explain, before I could stop him, he read it. The look on his face changed instantly. Confusion first, then disbelief, then anger. The kind of anger that comes from betrayal, not jealousy. He looked at me and asked quietly, "What is this?" That question wasn't loud. It wasn't aggressive, but it was heavy. Because it carried trust, hope, and fear all at once. I froze. My mind raced. Excuses tried to form. But nothing sounded right. Because nothing was right. I tried to laugh it off. Tried to downplay it. It's not what it looks like. Those words. The most useless words in moments like this. He didn't yell. Not at first. He just stared at me. And that silence hurt more than shouting ever could. He asked again, "Why is someone texting you like that?" My heart was pounding. My chest felt tight. And instead of taking responsibility, I defended myself. I minimized. I explained. I twisted the truth. I said things like, "We were just talking. It didn't mean anything. You're overreacting." And that's when it escalated. Because betrayal doesn't hurt less when you deny it. It hurts more. His voice rose. Not out of anger. Out of pain. "So you think I'm stupid? So you think this is funny? So this is what you've been doing?" I could see it in his eyes. The realization. The moment he connected the dots. The distance. The secrecy. The change in my energy. Everything made sense to him now. And that's the moment trust dies. I tried to grab my phone. Tried to stop him from reading more. But it was already too late. The damage was done. He scrolled, and every message felt like another cut, another confirmation, another betrayal. He exploded. Not physically, emotionally. Why would you do this to me? Why would you play with me like this? Why would you let me love you while you're entertaining someone else? I had no answer, because there isn't one. I cried. I begged. I tried to explain my confusion, my unresolved feelings, my mistakes. But explanations don't erase betrayal. They just explain how it happened. He felt humiliated, disrespected, played, and no amount of tears could change that. The argument turned ugly, not because of insults, but because of truth. You made me look stupid. You let me believe everything was real. You let me plan a future while you were living in the past. That's when I realized something painful. I didn't just hurt him. I shattered his trust. I tried to flip it. I brought up his flaws, his past, his situations. And that was wrong. Because when you're caught, blame becomes a weapon. And he saw right through it. Don't do that. Don't try to make me the problem. You knew what you were doing. He was right. And hearing the truth hurts when you're the villain in your own story. At that point, there was no saving it. The love was still there, but the safety was gone. He grabbed his things. Not dramatically, not angrily, just defeated. And that hurt more than if he had screamed. Because when someone stops fighting, it means they're done. I tried one last time. Let's talk. Please. Don't leave like this. He turned around and said something that will stay with me forever. I loved you honestly, and that's something you didn't give me back. Then he walked out. The door closed. And just like that, everything that felt good was gone. The silence afterward was unbearable. No phone buzzing. No laughter. No comfort. Just regret. I sat there alone, realizing something painful. I didn't lose him because of my ex. I lost him because of my choices. That night, reality hit hard. No distractions. No justifications. Just the truth. I broke my own heart by breaking his. And the worst part, I finally knew what I wanted. After it was gone, after he left, the house felt empty in a way I had never experienced before. Not quiet. Empty. The kind of empty that echoes. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. No tears at first. Just shock. Because when something ends suddenly, your mind takes time to catch up with your heart. I kept replaying the moment in my head. The look on his face. The way his voice cracked. The way he walked out without slamming the door. That part hurt the most. He didn't leave angry. He left wounded. That night, my phone stayed silent. No goodnight text. No, did you eat? No, I love you. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly alone. That's when the weight hit me. Not the breakup. The guilt. I started crying, not because I missed him, but because I realized what I had done. I hurt someone who loved me sincerely. Someone who didn't deserve confusion. Someone who didn't deserve competition with my past. I kept telling myself, I didn't mean to. But intent doesn't erase impact. The next few days were heavy. Everywhere I went reminded me of him. Songs, places, little routines we shared. Everything felt louder now that he was gone. And the ex, gone. The one I risked everything for. Silent. That's when it hit me. I didn't lose one relationship. I lost two. That's when regret really settled in. Not dramatic regret. Not loud regret. The quiet kind. The kind that sits in your chest and doesn't leave. I reached out to friends. Not for validation, but for truth. One of them looked at me and said something I needed to hear. You didn't mess up because you loved too much. You messed up because you didn't protect what you had. Another said, you can't heal unresolved feelings by dragging them into a new relationship. And that one hurt, because it was true. Someone else told me, you thought you needed answers, but what you really needed was closure with yourself. That's when I stopped blaming circumstances, stopped blaming timing, stopped blaming confusion, and started blaming the only thing that mattered. My choices. I had time now. Plenty of it. Time to sit with myself. Time to feel everything I avoided. Time to understand why I let this happen. And the truth was uncomfortable. I loved being loved. I loved attention. I loved feeling wanted. And when my past showed up, I didn't shut the door, because part of me liked knowing I still mattered there too. That realization hurt, because it meant I wasn't as healed as I thought. I thought about all the warning signs, the moments I could have stopped, the chances I had to be honest, the times my friends tried to save me, and I ignored them. I wasn't confused. I was avoiding accountability. Then came the advice that changed everything. One conversation stood out. Someone older, someone wiser. They said, you love deeply, but you don't always love wisely. They explained something I'd never considered. You fall fast, you feel intensely, and when something feels good, you jump in with your whole heart, but love also requires discipline. That word, discipline, I never connected it to love before. They continued. Love isn't just about feelings, it's about choices, boundaries, responsibility. And that hit me hard, because I didn't fail at loving. I failed at choosing correctly when it mattered. I kept asking myself, can I fix this? Can I make it right? But some things don't reset. Some bridges burn quietly. I wanted to apologize, not to be forgiven, but to acknowledge the damage. So I wrote messages I never sent. Apologies he may never read. Truths that came too late. And that's another hard lesson. Timing matters. Love doesn't wait forever. At some point, I stopped crying. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I accepted it. I accepted that I couldn't undo the damage. I accepted that I had to live with the consequences. I accepted that heartbreak isn't always something done to you. Sometimes, it's something you create. That's when the healing started. Not pretty healing. Not inspirational healing. Real healing. I stopped romanticizing my pain. Stopped playing the victim. Stopped asking, why did this happen to me? And started asking, what do I need to learn from this? I learned that unresolved feelings are dangerous. That honesty matters even when it's uncomfortable. That good love is rare. And once broken, it's hard to rebuild. Most importantly, I learned this. You don't hurt others without hurting yourself. This heartbreak wasn't just about losing him. It was about losing the version of myself I thought I was. The good version. The healed version. I had to rebuild. Slowly. Honestly. With accountability. And that's where the story shifts. Not toward romance, but toward growth. Because the end of a relationship doesn't have to be the end of your understanding. Sometimes, it's the beginning. The lesson I had to learn the hard way. After everything fell apart, life slowed down. Not in a peaceful way. In a forcing you to face yourself way. There were no distractions anymore. No good morning texts. No late night calls. No one asking how my day went. Just silence. And silence has a way of telling the truth. At first, I hated it. Because silence made me think. And thinking made me feel. And feeling made me confront things I spent months avoiding. I had to sit with the fact that I wasn't betrayed. I was the one who betrayed. And that truth didn't feel good. But it was necessary. For a long time, I asked myself, how did I mess up something so good? And the answer wasn't complicated. I didn't respect the love I was given. Not because I didn't care, but because I didn't protect it. I finally understood something important. Love doesn't leave suddenly. It fades when trust is chipped away, piece by piece. And I was the one holding the hammer. I stopped replaying the argument. Stopped wishing for different outcomes. Stopped imagining, what if? Because what if keeps you stuck. Instead, I focused on what now. What now meant accountability. Not the kind you post online. The kind you live with. I took responsibility for my actions. Not just to others, but to myself. I admitted that I liked attention. That I feared final endings. That I didn't close doors properly before opening new ones. And that honesty hurt. But it also freed me. I learned that unresolved feelings don't make you weak. Ignoring them does. I learned that loyalty isn't tested when things are hard. It's tested when things are comfortable. I learned that being loved doesn't mean you're healed. It just means someone chose you. Healing is work you still have to do yourself. For a while, I stayed away from relationships. Not because I was scared, but because I needed to rebuild my integrity. I needed to trust myself again. I stopped blaming timing. Stopped blaming confusion. Stopped blaming emotions. Because emotions don't make decisions. People do. I realized something else too. Sometimes, God removes people not as punishment, but as protection. Protection from repeating cycles. Protection from deeper damage. Protection from becoming someone you don't recognize. Losing him hurt, but losing my values would have hurt more. I didn't get closure from him. I didn't get forgiveness. And I had to accept that. Not every apology gets received. Not every mistake gets redeemed. And that's life. But growth doesn't come from being forgiven. It comes from being honest. I forgave myself. Not immediately. Not easily. But eventually, I stopped beating myself up every night. Stopped reliving my worst moments. Stopped defining myself by my mistake. Because one mistake doesn't define your whole story. Unless you refuse to learn from it. I became more intentional. More aware. More disciplined with my heart. Now, when something feels unfinished, I don't drag it into something new. I deal with it. Now, when someone loves me genuinely, I don't take it lightly. I protect it. And now, when temptation shows up, I recognize it for what it is. A test. This story isn't about being perfect. It's about being accountable. It's about understanding that love requires responsibility. That feelings without boundaries can destroy good things. That honesty matters, even when it costs you. If you're listening to this, and you see yourself in my story, this is your sign. Don't play with something real chasing, something familiar. Don't risk peace for excitement. Don't assume good love will always wait. Heal first. Choose wisely. Protect what chooses you. Because losing someone who truly loved you is a pain you don't forget. And sometimes, the lesson costs more than you expected. But if you learn it, it won't be wasted.